The sky above Virilia Prime burned like an open wound. Flashes of alien plasma lit the clouds orange, followed by the deep, rolling sound of explosions from the lower city. Commander Alara Koran watched from the ridge outside the Capitol dome, her uniform torn, the insignia half melted. The air stank of ozone and ash. Beneath her, the shattered remains of the colony stretched to the horizon, smoke, rubble, and the distant silhouettes of the Drenhall patrol craft cutting through the haze like predatory birds. Her comlink crackled, a thin voice breaking through static. "Commander, Sector 12's gone. The civs? Pull whoever's left back to the sublevel shelters." Alara replied, keeping her tone even. "We hold what's left until they run out of ammunition or mercy." She shut off the line before the soldier could protest. Mercy was not in the Drenhall vocabulary. For a long moment she stood still, watching the capital's defensive shields flicker and fade. The alien fleet in orbit fired at intervals, methodical, cruel, each impact another reminder that no help was coming. The Terran fleet had gone silent weeks ago, their transmissions lost beyond the storm barrier. The colony was alone. "Ma'am," her lieutenant, a thin, soot-covered man named Rain, approached. "Our rations are down to scraps. We can't hold the North Ridge." "Should I?" Alara's jaw tightened. "No retreats. The moment we run, we give them the city. We stay in the ruins, keep moving. Make them think there are more of us than there are." Rain hesitated. "And if they stop thinking and start counting? Then we make it cost them anyway." He gave a dry, bitter laugh that caught in his throat. "Aye, ma'am." When he left, Alara sank onto a broken slab of ferrocrete. Her pulse pounded behind her eyes. The colony's emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 81 days. Nothing. Not a whisper from beyond the storm. The comms technicians had begun to pray to static. She stared at the clouds again. They glowed faintly green, the residue of the subspace distortion that had cut Virilia off. Somewhere beyond that distortion, she imagined the endless void of Terran space, fleets, stations, entire worlds that still breathed freely. She wondered if they even remembered Virilia's name. Far beyond the storm, the TFS Valiant Dawn drifted at the edge of the distortion field. Commander Elena Rios stood on the bridge, one hand braced on the tactical console, eyes fixed on the shifting aurora of blue-white energy ahead. It looked like a living storm, writhing, consuming itself, and roaring in silence. Her ship's sensors returned nothing reliable. Every scan came back distorted. Her chief navigator, Lieutenant Heron, spoke without looking up. "The storm's density increased another 8%, Captain. No known vessels survived entry at this proximity. Command has forbidden any." "Command isn't here," Rios interrupted. "We are." Heron turned toward her, face pale in the glow of the consoles. "If we go in, we'll lose all comms. No fallback vector. We'd be blind, deaf, and alone." Rios' gaze remained on the storm. "They've been alone for months." The bridge fell silent. Only the low hum of the reactor filled the space, punctuated by the soft ticking of stress gauges in the hull. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Mei Lin, approached quietly. "We've run every sim, Elena. The probability of survival is under 12%. Then we make 12% work," Rios said, her voice steady. "If we don't try, Virilia dies knowing no one came. That's not who we are." May's jaw flexed. "The crew will follow you. But you know this ship wasn't built for blind jumps through unstable subspace." Rios gave a faint smile. "Neither were we. Yet here we stand." She turned to the helmsman. "Plot a burn through the weakest sector of the field. Maximum thrust, minimal reactor exposure. If the shielding buckles, we divert power from weapons. And if that's not enough?" Heron asked quietly. "Then we hold together by willpower," Rios said. "Prep all hands for turbulence. We jump in 5 minutes." Back on Virilia, the Drenhall broadcast filled every frequency. High Warlord Kravthur's voice, cold, deliberate, echoed from shattered screens across the city. "Humans of Virilia! You have resisted long enough. There is no fleet coming. There is no salvation. Surrender your weapons, and some of you may live to serve. Elara watched the feed from the command center, jaw clenched. Kravthur's reptilian eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He was right about one thing: no fleet had come. But surrender was not an option. She activated the colony's emergency transmitter again, fingers moving through the motions she'd repeated 100 times. The system's power indicator barely flickered. The storm devoured every outgoing signal like the ocean swallowing a scream. "Commander," Rain said, entering with a grimace. "Scouts report increased orbital activity. Drenhol's ships repositioning. Looks like they're preparing a final strike." Elara nodded. "Then this is where we stop running." She looked out the shattered viewport. The clouds had turned a darker shade, like bruised steel. Lightning spidered through the sky, unusual, even for the storm's interference. It pulsed again, brighter this time, and the ground trembled faintly. Rain frowned. "You feel that?" Before she could answer, the lights dimmed, and a low, resonant rumble rolled through the air. For an instant, it sounded like thunder, but deeper, continuous, alien. Above the clouds, something tore the atmosphere apart. A blazing streak cut through the storm's veil, glowing white-hot, trailing arcs of fire. It screamed across the heavens, a shape so vast the air itself shuddered. The Drenhol guns turned upward, firing blindly into the chaos. Elara stumbled to the window. "What in?" Rain's voice cracked. "That's no meteor." Through the glare, she saw it, steel, scarred, alive with energy. A Terran hull insignia, charred but visible, TFS Valiant Dawn. The radio burst alive, clearer than anything they'd heard in weeks. "This is Commander Rios of the Valiant Dawn. Hold your positions, Virilia. Humanity hasn't forgotten you." Every soldier in the command center froze. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then a ragged cheer erupted, raw and disbelieving. Elara felt something she hadn't in months: hope. On the Valiant Dawn's bridge, alarms blared. Systems overloaded as the ship broke through the storm. Rios gripped the railing as the hull vibrated like a struck bell. "Shields at 30%! May shouted. "We've lost long-range comms, but we're stable." Rios steadied herself, eyes locked on the planet below. Fires dotted the surface like dying embers. "Transmit a surface link to any human signal. Tell them we're here. Prepare for orbital engagement." Heron exhaled, tension breaking into a shaky grin. "We actually made it." Rios looked at the storm closing behind them, a writhing curtain of energy sealing shut. "No going back now," she said softly. "Let's make sure we were worth the risk." The storm thundered one last time as the Valiant Dawn leveled into orbit, her guns powering up, her hull still glowing from the heat of passage. Below, Virilia's people looked to the sky and saw their salvation emerging from the void. Hope had returned, howling like fire through the darkness. The storm had not yet faded, but for the first time in months, its thunder was no longer the loudest sound in Virilia's sky. The TFS Valiant Dawn burned in low orbit, her hull glowing faintly from reentry. Ion trails shimmered behind her like a comet's tail. Across the battered cities below, soldiers and civilians alike looked upward through smoke and ruin, whispering a single word as if afraid to break the miracle: human. Commander Elena Rios stood on the bridge, her posture taut, voice measured. "Status report." Lieutenant Heron's fingers danced across cracked displays. "Shields holding at 28%. Hull plating scorched but intact. Reactor output stabilizing at 70. We've got 2 weapon banks online and partial maneuvering thrusters." "Good enough," Rios said. "Get me a ground link." Static burst through the comm array, followed by a faint, broken voice. "Valiant Dawn, this is Commander Koran, Virilia Ground Forces. I don't know how you got through the storm, but we're holding out in the southern capital. We've got civilians trapped, enemy armor inbound." Rios exhaled, her shoulders easing just slightly. "We hear you, Commander. Reinforcements are not on the way, we are the reinforcements. Transmit your coordinates, we'll clear your skies." She cut the link, turning toward her crew. Helm, lock onto surface grid Delta 9. Tactical, load kinetic rods, target enemy formations within 3 kilometers of Koran's position. Lieutenant Commander Mei Lin raised an eyebrow. We're dropping tungsten into a populated zone? With surgical precision, Rios replied. If we miss, people die. If we hesitate, everyone dies. The bridge fell into focused silence. The ship trembled as its magnetic rails spun up. A soft, rising hum filled the air. Fire! On the surface, Elara Koran crouched behind the ruins of a transit hub as alien gunships swept low overhead. Her militia's return fire was sporadic, energy cells nearly drained, munitions scavenged from destroyed mechs. Every blast from the Drenhall tanks threw more debris into the air, choking visibility. Rain ducked beside her, bleeding from a cut above his eye. They're closing in, Commander. We won't hold another minute. Elara lifted her rifle, steady but resigned. Then we make the last one count. Before he could respond, the air grew still. Then came the sound, a deep, rolling vibration that made the ground hum beneath their boots. A streak of silver light cut across the sky, followed by a blinding impact several blocks away. The ground heaved, the shockwaves scattering alien armor like toys. The next strike landed a heartbeat later, then another, each detonation precise, methodical, devastating. Elara shielded her face from flying dust as the alien offensive collapsed in chaos. That's them, she whispered. That's the dawn. Through the haze, a surviving Drenhall gunship veered off course, engines sputtering. It crashed into the plaza and erupted into flame. Regroup! Elara shouted. Push forward before they recover! We've got cover fire now! Her troops surged from the rubble, firing with renewed ferocity. Above them, the Valiant Dawn's bridge lit with the reflected glow of orbital bombardment. 12 confirmed armor kills, Mei Lin reported, eyes sharp. Enemy air units dispersing. Their command networks fractured. Rios watched the display, the battle unfolding like a chessboard beneath glass. Keep up the pressure, but don't get comfortable. Krovthur's not the type to retreat quietly. Heron's console flared red. Incoming warp signature, large, directly ahead. A shadow eclipsed the Dawn's viewports as a massive Drenhall battleship dropped from the upper atmosphere, its hull a dark crescent bristling with plasma arrays. The name strobed across the sensor feed, Bloodwing. May swore under her breath. He came himself. Rios didn't flinch. Bring us to broadside. Target their forward batteries. The first volley from the Bloodwings slammed into the Dawn's shields, throwing sparks across the bridge. Consoles shorted out, the deck trembling beneath their feet. Shields at 18%! Heron shouted. Return fire, Rios commanded. The Dawn's plasma cannons ignited, streaks of blue light tearing through the void. One beam grazed the alien ship's flank, carving a molten scar. The enemy retaliated instantly, their firepower brutal and unrelenting. May adjusted targeting manually. We're outgunned. We need a distraction or we won't last another exchange. Rios stared at the tactical feed, calculating. We fake reactor instability. Bleed plasma into the exhaust ports, make it look like we're about to rupture. When they move in for the kill, we hit them point blank. May nodded once. Understood. The crew worked in sync, voices crisp over comms. The Dawn began to drift, her engines flickering erratically. The Bloodwing, reading weakness, advanced, massive cannons charging for a final strike. No, Rios whispered. The Dawn's auxiliary drives detonated outward, not enough to destroy but enough to blind sensors and throw shockwaves through the alien ship's shield harmonics. Fire all banks! Every surviving weapon on the Dawn unleashed at once. The combined barrage speared through the Bloodwing's exposed hull. The alien warship convulsed, its plasma cores overloading in sequence. A bloom of white light filled the void. The Bloodwing tore apart, fragments scattering like embers into the storm. Silence followed. The bridge crew stared at the wreckage in stunned disbelief. Heron broke it first, voice shaking. Direct hit. The Bloodwing is gone. Rios steadied herself, her knuckles white against the railing. Then we don't waste the chance. Begin atmospheric descent. The ground forces still need us. May turned, eyes searching Rio's face. We barely have control. The engines are half dead. Half is enough, Rios replied. If this ship can breathe, it can fight. Virelia's soldiers watched the explosion streak across the heavens like a second sunrise. The Drenho forces faltered instantly, their command severed, their coordination breaking apart. Rain stared skyward. They destroyed a battleship. Elara smiled faintly through the grime. One ship did that. One human ship. Her calm crackled again. Rio's voice came through, rough but steady. Ground command, this is Valiant Dawn. Enemy flagship neutralized. We're initiating orbital descent to provide closer support. Status report. Still fighting, Elara replied. But morale's higher than it's been in weeks. We can push them back if you keep them off our heads. We'll give you more than that, Rios said. You hold your line, we'll burn theirs. The Dawn entered the upper atmosphere, flames licking at her hull. Every system screamed warnings. Damage readouts flooded across the bridge. Yet her crew worked without pause, focused, relentless. Rios stood amid the chaos, her voice carrying over the alarms. If we go down facing forward. Bring us within strike range. We'll draw every enemy ship away from the capital. May gave a sharp nod. Aye, Captain. The ship bucked violently as anti-orbital fire lanced up from the surface. Each impact rattled the crew, but the Dawn pressed lower, her silhouette cutting through smoke and lightning. Through the storm glow, Virelia's burning continents came into view. Cities shattered, oceans reflecting fire. Yet in that ruin glimmered signs of resistance, pockets of human light fighting to stay alive. Rios stared down at them, her voice low. No one dies thinking we forgot them. The storm above Virelia was breaking apart. Shredded lightning clouds drifted like torn sails across a bruised sky, revealing sunlight for the first time in months. Yet the world below remained a battlefield. Smoke still rose from the capital ruins. The TFS Valiant Dawn hung low in the upper atmosphere, scorched and bleeding radiation from half a dozen hull fractures. Her engines sputtered with every maneuver, and her shield array flickered like a dying heartbeat. Inside, the bridge smelled of burnt circuitry and ozone. Commander Elena Rios stood in silence at the viewport, her reflection fractured across cracked glass. The Bloodwing's wreckage glimmered faintly in orbit, a cold victory. Lieutenant Heron's voice broke through the hum of damage alarms. Captain, life support is stable, but we've lost secondary power grids across the dorsal section. Reactor pressures climbing, core containments degrading faster than projected. Can we sustain orbit? She asked. Not for long. Maybe an hour before reentry becomes mandatory. Rios nodded slowly. Then we use that hour wisely. Maylin approached, fatigue etched into her face. The Drenho aren't finished. Ground sensors show heavy movement from the northern ridge. Looks like they're committing everything they have. Rios turned from the viewport, her expression calm. They'll try to break the colony before we fall. Get me Commander Caron. The calm crackled, distorted by interference. Rios, we read you. Elara's voice came through, hoarse and strained. They're coming hard from the north. If we can't hold the ridge, they'll reach the capital within the hour. Then you won't fight alone, Rios said. We'll provide direct fire support. Prepare your people to advance when we open the line. You're running out of sky, Captain, Elara warned. Then I'll fight closer to the ground, Rios replied. See you on the surface, Commander. She cut the link and faced her crew. Bring the ship down. Controlled descent over the northern front. Divert all remaining power to the forward guns. We're ending this. Outside, the Valiant Dawn began her fall. Flames wrapped her hull as she pierced the lower clouds, the friction painting her like a star aflame. Below, the Drenho legions spread across the charred plains, tanks, artillery crawlers, and columns of armored infantry moving with precision. They looked up and saw their doom descending. Rios gripped the railing as the ship trembled violently. Stabilizers? Minimal control, Heron answered. We can guide her down, but she won't be flying back up. That's fine, Rios said quietly. We came to stay. Mei Lin's hands hovered over the weapons console. Targets locked. Fire at will. The Dawn's main batteries roared. Bolts of plasma tore through the Drenhall formations, vaporizing armor and shattering ranks. The ground convulsed under the bombardment, turning metal to slag and sand to glass. On the ridge, Alara's troops watched in awe as the alien lines disintegrated. Then she raised her rifle and shouted, Now! Push forward while they're broken! Her militia surged across the battlefield, advancing through smoke and flame. Rain sprinted beside her, reloading as they ran. Never thought I'd see a warship fighting like artillery. Alara smiled grimly. That's not artillery, Lieutenant. That's vengeance. The battle raged for over an hour. Every blast from the valiant Dawn bought the militia precious ground, but the cost was brutal. On the ship, systems failed one after another. Bulkheads warped from heat. Crew moved through smoke-choked corridors to reroute power lines by hand. Rios moved among them, sleeves rolled up, voice steady as she directed teams through the chaos. Her command jacket was torn, streaked with soot. An engineer stumbled toward her, face pale. Captain, containment seals are failing. If we keep firing, the reactor will breach. Rios met his eyes. Then we'll make that breach count. Mei Lin appeared beside her. You're thinking of a controlled detonation. Rios nodded. If we overload the core and drive her straight into the Drenhall command center, we take their leadership out in one strike. The radiation burst will cripple whatever's left of their army. Mei hesitated, then gave a slow, knowing nod. I'll start the sequence. Rios turned to the crew gathered around the central console. You've all done your duty. If any of you want to evacuate, now's your chance. No one moved. A young ensign finally spoke. Ma'am, with the storm closing, there's nowhere to go. If this ship's going down, I'd rather go down fighting. Rios's throat tightened. Then let's finish it together. On the surface, Alara's battalion reached the outskirts of the capital ruins. The Drenhall resistance stiffened as surviving commanders rallied their troops. Plasma bolts streaked through the smoke. Commander! Rain shouted, pointing toward the horizon. Through the rising fire, a massive silhouette descended, engines howling, hulls splitting apart in molten seams. The valiant Dawn was falling, her trajectory locked toward the ocean just beyond the alien forward base. Alara realized what was coming. All units, fall back from the shore! Get clear of the impact zone! They ran, dragging the wounded with them. The air thickened with heat and static. The ground shook with each second as the warship drew closer. In her final moments on the bridge, Rios stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind her back. The ocean gleamed below, reflecting the burning sky. Mei's voice came through the intercom. Core overload at critical. Detonation in 30 seconds. Rios activated the ship-wide channel. Her voice carried through every deck. Crew of the Valiant Dawn, this is your captain. You've honored every world that ever raised our flag. Whatever happens now, know this, Virilia will live because we came. She paused, steadying her breath. For every colony that thought no one would return, let this be proof, humanity never abandons its own. She closed the channel and whispered, Execute. The Valiant Dawn struck the ocean like a falling sun. The impact unleashed a blinding shockwave that rippled across the horizon. Water vaporized into clouds of steam. The Drenhall command fortress, hidden beneath the waves, disintegrated under the blast. On land, the tremor knocked soldiers off their feet. Alara shielded her face as wind and heat tore through the valley. When the light faded, the alien war machines were silent. What few remained broke formation and fled toward the mountains, leaderless and terrified.